All right, recording has started. Okay, so we're going to do a couple things in this one. I think I had said we're going over circles and arcs, relations, and we'll talk about chamfers and fillets. So let's just start by starting a new sketch. So we're going to click over to the sketch tab, click our sketch icon, and go to the top plane. And for this one, what we're going to do is we are going to make we're going to make like almost like a flag post, I guess you could say. So basically the idea of it is we're going to make a circular base. We'll have kind of like 4 legs just kind of going off of it. And from there, we'll kind of extrude up almost like a little pipe that we'd be able to put our flag in, and we'll cut a hole in it. We'll kind of just get started, and you can kind of see what we'll be doing as we go. But let's just start by making a circle here. So we'll do a center point circle, have it centered on the origin. And I don't know, what do you guys think would be a reasonable diameter for this? This is going to be like the central part of our flag stand. What are you guys thinking for a size?
Give it 4. Let's go 4.
4 inches? All right.
Yep.
So 4 inches. Okay. So that's going to kind of just be our circular, just like a base, because right now we're really going to be working on making our legs. And we're just going to have them be like flat legs. They're not going to be like coming off at an angle or anything. It'll be really simple. So to make our legs, we could try doing a rectangle. Don't follow along here. I'm going to kind of just show you what happens. But what ends up happening is, like, if I do the 2-corner rectangle, I could have, both corners touching this circle, right? And do that. That works pretty well, right? And then all I have to do is delete this line here. And then I have a nice little, like rectangular piece coming off the circle. The other thing I can do is I can just go to my lines. I could also just use lines to make a rectangle. Just 3 lines. 1, 2, 3. So let's do lines for this. So we'll basically make 4 rectangles around it and just use lines to make those rectangles. Don't use the rectangle option, because that'll give us a bit more opportunity to talk about relations. And one thing I'd like you to do for one of them, make it like really badly. I'll kind of show you what I mean. So I have 2 good ones, and then let's just make one that just doesn't look at all like a rectangle. So something like this. So if you just make at least one of them look like this, that would be great. And because that's going to how we're going to kind of just start to demonstrate how relations work, and that'll be really helpful in that. So let me know once you have 3 okay looking rectangles and then 1 really bad one. So yeah, just let me know when you're ready. How you guys doing? Are you stuck on anything, or?
I'm still drawing the rectangles.
Okay, cool. Yeah, in general, in this case, it would probably be easier to do the rectangle. And honestly, if you want to do the rectangle for 3 of them, go for it. I just wanted one that's going to have really bad lines. And with the rectangles, it makes the lines really nice, which is kind of against the point. But yeah, in cases like this, it probably would be quickest to do a rectangle and then cut out that line there. And if you actually look, there's a bunch of rectangle options. I'm actually going to do, just so I can kind of show it off, I'm going to delete one of these. Because if you guys wanted to use rectangles for this, there's a really nice rectangle option. So you can kind of see there's a bunch of different options when you do rectangles. You could do a corner rectangle where you click one corner with another, center rectangle where you do a center and then a corner. This one's really nice though for this, right? Because you could do one corner here, another corner here. So you got both corners touching the circle automatically. And then from there, you can kind of place your last corner and then delete this. So that's a really cool way of doing that. But yeah, I'd highly recommend messing around with some of these because I don't think I'm going to cover really even close to all of them, but it's really useful. All right, guys ready?
I'm good.
You're good, Murdo?
Yep, we're all good.
So let's first start with this really bad one. So we're going to try to make this one look nice. And what's really interesting is in SolidWorks, so obviously you could dimension things. So I was talking a lot in the last one about like making sure everything's fully defined. Now notice, this circle is fully defined. And why is that? Well, it's because we gave it a dimension here. So that means that the outer ring can't, get bigger or smaller. And if we look at the center point, it has this thing called coincident with the origin. And this is what's called a relation. And you can kind of see them with little green squares. And if you click on these lines, you'll see they also have relations, right? This point here is coincident with the edge of the circle, and it is vertical. That's how we're defining this line. It's not fully defined, but it's partially defined. Like I can't move this point off the circle. Like I've told it it's on the circle. I also can't change the angle of this line here. Oh, my bad. I can't change the angle of this line because I said it's vertical. I didn't say it specifically, but SolidWorks kind of just assumed it. Like if I were to draw a line here and make it perfectly horizontal, notice it automatically gives me that relation. So SolidWorks will a lot of the time kind of just say, yeah, we're pretty sure that this is what they want. So you do have to be careful sometimes because sometimes it'll give you a horizontal or a vertical relation without you wanting it. But it can be really nice for these rectangles because now they're all nice and square. So let's work on this rectangle over here. We're going to make this one a little bit nicer. So let's start off by we can start by kind of making it roughly rectangular at first. And then that'll give us a better idea of where we have to go from there. So I know I want this to be horizontal. All you do to add relations is you just click on the line and you click on the relation. And that's how you can do some relations. But occasionally there are going to be relations where, like here, all I said was this line is now horizontal. But when you talk about these things like coincident, coincident, by the way, just means this point is locked onto this. It's basically like these two things are touching, like they occur in the same place. It's like this point will always be touching this circle. But let's say we wanted to do a relation where we're kind of locking these two lines together. Because what I can do is instead of saying this is horizontal, I could also say this is horizontal, which we already did, and this one's parallel to it. So what I can do is I can click on this line, and you want to hold shift. Shift is what's going to allow you to select multiple. So whenever you're in SolidWorks, if you're ever trying to select multiple lines or multiple dots or multiple anything, just hold shift for each click and it'll kind of hold it and it'll keep selecting everything else. So really nice trick. So yeah, we're going to want to make these two lines parallel. And as you can see, we have a lot more options now. So I can just set both of them to be horizontal if I wanted to, both vertical, definitely don't want that. Collinear is a really nice one. We can use that one later on. That basically just means that two lines are parallel and also, I'll show you guys, it'll be a little bit easier that way. But perpendicular, parallel, that's what we want. We can say equal in length. That'll be useful. But for now, let's just do parallel. And as you can see, this guy's still horizontal. And this one, it doesn't have, and you can kind of see that this parallel relationship shows up on both of them, which is really nice. It shows us that this is parallel to this, and it gives us a little number so we don't lose track of it. All right, you guys following? Sorry, I was kind of rambling a bit there because I haven't done this one before, but you guys good so far?
Is it normal that mine turn yellow?
Yours turn yellow.
Yeah, my turn. I like got it back to like blue and like black and stuff, but like the lines turned yellow for a second, and then
Ah,
it had a
yes.
caution sign.
Sure. So I'll actually make that happen on mine real quick. What I can do is you got something similar to this. Like I don't know if you had a red one, but you had yellow things like this.
Yeah, I didn't have red, but I
Yeah,
definitely had yellow.
absolutely. So that's really common in SolidWorks. And it's really easy to do if you're not paying attention. I do it all the time. So essentially, yellow is like a warning. Yellow is basically saying nothing's broken, but you're giving me too much information. So let me give you an example. I'll show you guys an example later on of yellows, but here's what happens when you try doing red. See how I've said that this one is horizontal? Now, if I say it's also vertical, it immediately breaks, right? Whenever you see red, that means that you've given it input that does not work. Like you're contradicting yourself. So I'm telling SolidWorks that this line is both horizontal and vertical, right? It can't do it. And so it turns red. And red basically means it's unsolvable. This is completely impossible. If you see just yellow, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You do want to fix it, but nothing's like broken. That's just it saying you're giving it too much information. And I'll make it happen later on intentionally, and we'll kind of see what happens. And what'll also happen is, see how it's undefined now because we have blue lines. Whenever you have yellow or red, it'll say overdefined. Basically, you're just giving it too much data and it doesn't know what to do. So let's go to this line. But were we able to make these two lines parallel here?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, cool. So let's make this one vertical for now, right? Because we want this one to be vertical. So we'll do that. And this one's done. But I just kind of want to show you something real quick. So with relations, what's really nice, all you have to do to delete them. So you click on wherever the relation is. In this case, it's on this line. So I click the line, it pops up. You click on your relation, it'll turn blue. When your relation is blue, that means you've selected it. And often the thing that it's defining, like this line here, will turn pink. And from there, you just hit the delete button on your keyboard and it disappears. And now this guy is no longer vertical. I can make him angled again, if that makes sense. So it's pretty easy to delete relations. And I just want to show you a different way I could have done this. Instead of saying that this is vertical, I could have also said that this line is perpendicular to this line. That's another relation I could have done. If you guys want to swap out the vertical for it, for perpendicular, go for it, but it doesn't matter too much. So let's try a couple more relations. Let's try doing a collinear relation. So collinear, if let's say I took these two lines and I made them collinear, you'll kind of see what happened, but what'll happen. I hit collinear and it basically makes them line up. It basically makes the two lines and lines them up. I don't really know of a better way to describe it. Makes them collinear. Yeah, it'll automatically make, if they're not parallel yet, they'll become parallel and they'll basically line themselves up like this, which is pretty useful. So that's one thing we can do. Now notice whenever I move this line up and down, this one moves up and down because they have to kind of stay in line. Cool. So I don't know if you guys want to try that. Let me know when you guys are all set with that. And another thing we can do, if we wanted, with this stand, we probably don't want our legs looking like this. We probably want both of these lines to be equal length. So I can click this one, hold shift, click this one, and hit equal. And now it'll make these two lines equal length. And you can kind of see this one jumped up to compensate. I believe whichever one you click retains its original dimension. So like, let's say I made this one really big. So we're looking at this line, or sorry, I don't want to lose you guys. Are you guys following still?
Yeah.
Cool. So let's say I want to take this line here and this line here and make them equal. What happens is if I select this one first, hold shift, select this one will stay the same size and this one will change. So see how this one grew to become the same size? If I had done it in reverse order, the opposite would have happened. All right, so we'll move that guy back. So let's kind of look at some other stuff we can do. Well, first let's fully define everything. So I think what we're going to want to do is have all of our, all of these little thin lines, we're probably going to want them to all be the same size. So I'm just going to run around and do that real quick. So we already defined those two. So let's just define these three. The reason why I'm only doing these three is because these two are already equal. So if these three are equal and this one's equal to this one, all four will be equal. Or I could also select this one again. I don't think it would do anything wrong. Like it wouldn't break anything, but kind of a, you know, don't bother kind of thing. So I'm going to click equal. Now they're all equal. And I'm now noticing that this guy is no longer straight. Or straight, he is straight, but is now at an angle. So I'm just going to click horizontal. So that relation must not have been added in automatically by SolidWorks. You guys still following?
Mine says it's like, I don't know, there's like a caution thing on it. It says invalid solution or something. Like after I turned yellow and then I got rid of the yellow on the thing, it's still, I don't know, there's still, I guess, a problem. But I don't
Still
see it
yellow?
because it's not. Huh?
Hold on. I'm going to stop my share. And I'm going to see if you want to share and we can try to just.
Oh, I'm using my phone to
Oh,
like,
I see. All right.
and
Gotcha.
then yeah.
Trying to figure out how we can diagnose this. So click on, so I'm assuming your lines are yellow, right?
No.
Oh, wait, so there's
There's
nothing yellow?
Yeah, there's nothing yellow. I don't know. That's why I'm a little bit confused. But I've got a lot of green, let's say. I've got a lot of green on my thing.
You have a lot of green. Okay.
Everywhere.
I
I don't,
see.
it's been always like that though.
It has? All right. So that's the issue with relations. If you're not paying attention to what ones you add, occasionally you'll add two that conflict or you'll add two that overdefine something. So it's very possible you might have just misclicked and like clicked a line where it just doesn't work
Yeah.
when you were selecting stuff. So I would just
Okay.
try deleting your relations.
Mm-hmm.
Like any equals relations, I would start with deleting those.
Okay.
So if you
All
have
right.
like,
I'm gonna try to like, just like kind of redo it.
all right.
Okay.
Now this guy's broken. Let's see. So I'm also noticing this guy's not defined as being vertical. So I'm going to fix that. Make him vertical, make him horizontal. I'm not really planning on fully defining everything here. This was more meant to just be kind of like a playground to kind of show you guys a couple different relations. So if you guys want to try adding a couple more, like if you see anything on yours, like, hey, I want this to be this way, go ahead and add it. I'm not planning on finishing this part though. I just kind of wanted to show you guys a couple relations, and this is a really good way of showing you a bunch. But here, Julie, I'm just going to show you what happens when you try to break something. So remember how I already set this one to be equal to this one? So now let's try something. I'm going to say that this is going to be, 2 inches. Yeah, we'll just say that's 2 inches. Cool. Now, remember, this one is equal to this one. So this is also 2 inches. And then these ones are also all equal. So if all of these should be exactly 2 inches. Now, what ends up happening is, let's say I dimension another one. And this is going to be a really good example on what the difference is between yellows and reds, basically, which would be when you're kind of over defining versus when you've broken it. So let's say I click that one. Now it pops up as make it driven. It's going to over define it. I'm going to say I don't care, leave it driving. And look, everything's yellow, right? No, nothing's right. I didn't like technically nothing is broken, right? Because this is 2 inches. I've just set it an extra time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't like that. It really doesn't like that. So whenever you're, whenever you make two lines equal, if you then give both of them their own dimension, it's going to get angry.
So if you like set it like one of them to like 3, it would turn red.
And that's when it would turn red because all of a sudden, like them both being 2, that's like it's true. It's just kind of scary for SolidWorks. But yeah, if I were to, this one's 3, yeah, hold on. So I have to, it's not letting me do it. Hold on. What I can do is if I really want to do this, I'm going to delete this equals and I'll add it back in. Just to kind of force it. So we'll make this one 3 inches now. And now I'm going to say this one's 3 inches, this one's 2 inches. Now let's make them equal. And now we got our red because now
Yeah.
I basically told it 2 things and one of them is not true, right? If I tell them 2 things and they're both correct, but it's like repetitive, it'll throw yellows at you.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you get reds, that means like something is wrong.
Okay.
And now that's not to say getting yellow lines is okay. You really don't want those. That's really bad. Because essentially what happens is the sketch just locks itself. Like see how like everything's just refusing to move.
Yeah.
So you really want to avoid both. Don't ever have either. But
Well,
yeah.
then I have another question. So like I like got rid of my lines because like I was trying to like figure out the problem with why it was like saying caution, and I literally got rid of like all the lines and all the I just left the circle, but it still says that there's like a problem or something. I don't know
Really?
why with the sketch, which is strange to
It's
me.
still saying there's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't worry about it too much.
So I just like pretend it's not happening because it says it's fully defined. It's not like anything's like technically wrong with it. It just says it's like a caution sign on it.
There's just a caution sign on it.
Yeah.
I mean, would you be able to just take a screenshot of it and send it in Slack? Or just a picture? Like, don't worry about it too much because I wasn't planning on doing anything more with this than just show off a couple different relations.
Okay.
Yeah. And I will say, guys, like I was kind of like mixing and matching like which relations I was doing. Like I did collinear here, and then I did like a perpendicular here, and I did equals here. And that was just because I was trying to show off a bunch. Generally, you don't want to do that. Like kind of just mix and match relations and just go crazy. Usually you want to stick to it kind of goes under like almost like best practice when you're designing. Where a lot of the times you're better off like, for example, where I did like the perpendicular and parallel and horizontal and all that stuff. A lot of times you're better off just if I know I want this line to be vertical, just make it vertical. Don't like perpendicular. Like whenever you're putting a dimension down or a relation, it kind of becomes important to think about like what is the goal of this? Like if I'm making a flagpole, right? I want the pole to go up and down. I wouldn't say it's perpendicular to the ground. I would want it to just be vertical, because I don't really care if the ground is even or not. I want the pole to go up and down. I want it vertical. And you'll see that a lot in sketches where I do it all the time too, where I'll say, oh, well, I want this line. I'm just going to make it perpendicular to this one. But really, this line's supposed to just be vertical. I don't care if it's perpendicular. I want this line to specifically be vertical. So when you're designing parts, you really want to be careful with because a lot of times, it's like, do I use a relation? Do I add a dimension? Because you're going to, as you kind of learn to mess around with more of these tools, you'll see that there's a lot of options to fully define your parts. And it's important to kind of think about what do I want each of these lines to do? Because I don't know, you guys ever like been in a Microsoft Word doc and you like add a picture and it messes everything up? That can happen a lot in SolidWorks parts. Like depending on how you do your relations, like I know a lot of times I'll do like fancy geometry and all this stuff just to avoid putting dimensions down. But what'll then happen is like I'll change another piece of it and everything breaks. Kind of like what was happening to you, Julia, where or like what happened here when I tried to add the equals relation, everything broke. A lot of times like you'll change a dimension somewhere, and then because you set up all these relations, something will break. So it's a really good idea to think about kind of what's the purpose of what you're doing and really kind of think through what the best option is. Because I think one of the tricky parts with SolidWorks is you have so many choices. And I would like to just clarify, because with this one, we went through and kind of used all the options. You want to be a little more selective than that. This was really just to show you guys what you can do, probably not what you should do. So I'm going to delete this sketch. Going to hit the red X, discard changes. One of the very few times I've ever done that intentionally. Usually I hit that X by accident. And we're going to start a second sketch. So that was kind of just to try to introduce you guys to relations. And now we will try making like an actual part. So what I'd like to try making is a like chain, not like chain on a robot, but like like lifting chains. Hold on. I'm just gonna pull up a I put chain link into my Windows search and a SolidWorks model of a chain link came up. That's not the kind of chain link I wanted though. Hold on. All right. What I want to make is one of these guys. Just a single link of a chain. We're not going to worry about it actually being rounded. We're basically going to be just making like the oval and we'll extrude it. So like it's still going to have corners. It won't be nice and round. But I'd basically just like to make basically just an oval shape. So it won't be like a nice round piece, but we'll basically just be making this and then extruding it. So let's get started. And that'll be kind of our, oh, there we go. This will kind of just be a quick intro to circles and arcs, and we'll get to use a couple of our relation things that we learned. Is everyone kind of ready to start a new sketch? All right, as long as no one's stuck on anything. So I'm going to start a new sketch on my top plane. Doesn't really matter what plane you choose for this. And now when you're making a link, like a chain link, I'm going to kind of just sketch it out with lines real quick. Or we'll kind of do this more as a walkthrough. So first I'm going to start by making kind of just like two lines going like this. And this will kind of form like the straight part of our chain link. Everyone following so far? I don't want to lose anyone.
Yeah, I'm good.
You're good? Awesome. So now we need to add a curved piece here, right, for the ends of our link. And we're going to look at a couple, I'm going to just go over two different arcs real quick. So if you go to your arcs, that's the one right under the circle. You'll see that there's a bunch of options. We can do a 3-point arc, tangent arc, or center point arc. I'm going to do the tangent arc first because this is the easiest one in this case. And in a lot of these situations, there's going to be an easiest way of drawing these different shapes. So it's kind of important. I would say if you have a chance, just like open a new sketch and just draw a bunch of shapes and see like how it feels to do each one. Because a lot of times different ones will be useful in different places. So we're going to do a tangent one. And you can kind of see what it ends up doing. Oh, here we go. It actually gives a little animation of how it works. But it's just going to make an arc that is tangent to a sketch entity. Basically what that means is that if I go from here to here, these lines are tangent to this curve. I don't know if any of you guys have taken calculus yet, but once you guys do, this will make a whole lot more sense, I guess. But all it's going to do is it's just going to make a curve, and it's going to be kind of almost like lined up with these really well. So you can kind of see it's a really smooth transition. So just do the drop down and use that to make a tangent arc here. And let me know when you guys are finished up with that. Everyone good?
I'm good.
Awesome. All right, so let's also try the center point arc. We're going to do that one next. I'd say center point arc is probably the one I use the most. I will admit in this case, it's probably the worst of the three. I think a 3-point arc would be better. I'll show you guys how to do a 3-point arc. Don't follow along for this one because I'd like to use center point just because I think that one's the most useful. Although I'll admit this definitely isn't the best use case for it. So I'll show off 3-point arc real quick, but you don't have to follow along with this one because I'll just have you delete it anyways. So the way 3-point arc works is you select one endpoint, then your other endpoint, and then you will just basically determine how far out you want it to go. And you can kind of see like like the tangent arc was really nice because it got it like lined up and really smooth right away. And you can kind of see here like a bit of a weird angle, but then if I go too far, it kind of like bulges out. So I'll just leave it here for now. Because ultimately I'm just going to delete it. So now we're going to delete it. But if we wanted to make it look nice like this tangent arc, all we would need to do is, and one thing is curves and lines have totally different relations that work with each one. So if I click this curve in this line, you can see that I get this tangent option, which was never a thing before. But if I click it, it makes the arc tangent to this line. And then if I do it to the other line as well, click tangent, now we have a really nice looking end curve here, which is set up basically the same as the tangent arc. I just had to do more work to do this. That's why I think tangent arc is probably the best, because if you look, actually, tangent arc, when we drew it, automatically made, SolidWorks already made those tangent relations for us. Tangent arc is definitely the best option for this, but I want to show you guys center point arc still. So with center point arcs, you need to start with a center point. So let's start by making a line here, and you'll kind of see why we're doing this in a second. So we're going to start by making a line. And I'm actually going to also use this as an opportunity to show you guys how to do construction geometry, which I'll explain a little bit. But we're going to click on this line now that we just drew. And if you see under options, we can click for construction. Now, construction lines are really, really useful. Basically, the way they work is, remember in the last class how we would basically draw a bunch of lines and then we'd extrude the shape that those lines made? Well, what ends up happening is, if I'm ever using lines, like this line, I don't want to be part of the shape. I'm just using this to draw my center point arc, right? And I'll show you how we're going to use that to help us. But I don't want this to show up in the actual shape. So if I make it a construction line, what'll end up happening is basically just almost ignores that line we're doing extrudes. So it'll do the extrude as if that line was never there. And if you guys want, when we do the extrude step, I can show you what happens if it is a construction line versus when it isn't. Just to show you why it's useful. But we're going to click over to center point arc. And now if we look, it gives us a little infograph here on what we need to do. We could also watch the animation up here. Most SolidWorks commands have a little animation to show you how to use it, which is unbelievably useful. I absolutely love it. But as you can see, the first thing we need to do is select a center point. I'm going to choose my center point to be the midpoint of this line. And you can see that as we're getting ready to do our point for the arc, it like the midpoint of this line kind of just pops up really strongly. Like you can see that when I do that, it just pops up. So I'm going to click on the midpoint, and then I'm going to click this point, and then I'm going to drag down, click that point. And boom, now I have another arc. And that's the other way you can draw a really nice arc in this case. So center point arcs, you need to start by selecting a point, basically. And that's why we drew that line here, because we wanted to use the center point of this line as the center point for our arc. And you can kind of see here that this point is probably midway between these two. Well, we actually know it is, but you guys still following?
Yup.
Cool. And honestly, as you guys do more, like honestly, you can use any of these arcs in really any situation. But it's really more of a case of a lot of times one will be a lot easier to do. Like, for example, with this guy, really no work. This was the best option. I clicked one point, clicked the other point, and I got a beautiful arc just like that. The 3-point arc, I was able to draw it pretty quick, but then I needed to add relations at the end. And then with this center point arc, I needed to almost do like prep work first. So you can kind of see how tangent, like I got the same thing with all of them, but tangent arc was just by far the easiest. And the thing with a lot of CAD is you're definitely going to have to experiment yourself and play around with it. Because it does take practice, because there's just so many options, and it's a very creative thing you can do. So right now we kind of have the outside of the link. Now we need to add the inside, because like we're not like hollowing it out, but just so we have that hole in the center for the next link to kind of slot into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another set of lines. Or actually first, before we even do that, see how I have a bunch of blue lines? As I drag stuff around, stuff moves. I don't like that. So we're going to fully define all this first before we move on, which is probably a good idea. So first we need to decide how wide we want our chain link to be. Anyone have any favorite picks? Anyone have any ideas? Anyone want to pick a number? All right, we'll call it 3. And then once you do that, we can decide how long we want our link to be. So I'll just do how long I want this line to be. I'll set that to be 4. Oh. Yeah, Aaron?
Can you use a straight spot for this? Will that be something that works?
Sorry, can you say that again? I have my volume down a bit.
Can you use a straight spot?
Oh, straight slot? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, we literally just took extra time making a straight slot. Yep. Yeah, no, straight slot. Yeah, if we're making a chain link, straight slot's probably the easiest way to do it. I just wanted to show off how to do arcs. But yeah, 100%. Yeah, what Aaron was saying is we also could have just, I'll do this up in the corner up here. We literally could have just used straight slot to make that exact same shape. Yes, that is true. Yeah, that would have been a easier way of doing it. Yeah, right here, I'm just kind of trying to show off how to do the different arcs, but yep. Yeah, if you're ever trying to make a chain link, definitely use straight slot. Actually, you guys want to learn how to use straight slot? Yeah, let's do it. So what we can do now is, because we need to still do like that cutout center part, we can use straight slot to kind of do that. So the way straight slot works is first we're going to draw like a line, and that's going to be like the line of our, like that our slot forms along. And then our second, so we'll do two clicks there to make a line. And then our third click will kind of define how wide our slot is. So I'll just kind of demo it real quick. So wait, first I click on this point, go to this point to make our line, right? Now, as I expand it out, I can, yeah, determine how wide I want my slot to be. And I'm just going to eyeball it because I'm going to have to dimension it later anyways. Something I've seen a lot of people get confused on is you can often see like the dimension of what you're doing as you're drawing it. That doesn't mean it's fully defined. Like if I were to put in 2 here, right, it'll make it 2 inches, but it won't add that dimension, right? See, I made it 2 inches exactly, but it's still underdefined. I helped teach a SolidWorks class over fall semester of college. And this is something a lot of the students have trouble with. Like, even if you're drawing a line real quick, I can kind of show you. You can see down here in this corner here, the distance, and you can see here the distance. But even if I hit 5 to make the line exactly 5 inches, it's not defined at all. So even if you know it's the right length, like I know this is going to be 2 inches, still add the dimension though, just to kind of like lock it in. It's a very important thing to get in the habit of, because a lot of times what'll happen is if something's underdefined, sometimes if you change a dimension somewhere else, it'll just go crazy, kind of like the adding a picture into Microsoft Word. So you have to be very careful about, making sure everything's fully defined. But you also want to make sure you're defining everything right. You don't, kind of like what I was saying with that flagpole thing. You don't want to just throw in a bunch of random relations. You want to kind of think about it first. But yeah, so has everyone been able to get to this point? I'll be honest, I almost never use straight slot just because I usually don't make these kinds of shapes, but it's definitely a useful tool, as Aaron pointed out. Is everyone good here?
Yeah.
Cool. And I guess just for we actually still can't, we're actually going to still make this rounded, I think. So let's extrude this. And we'll extrude it 0.5 inches, ½ inch. And this is an okay looking chain link, but you can see that we still have these corners, like these edges. And so this is an excellent way to start talking about fillets and chamfers. So a lot of times when you're making a part, you don't want it to have a sharp corner. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. chamfers and fillets are both ways to basically take off edges or corners. And I'm going to demo. What we can do is we can do a fillet on one side and chamfer on the other. We'll do that. So first, let me show you how fillet works. So we click fillet, and this is in the features tab. So I click fillet, and from there it says items to fillet. So I'd click any lines or corners I want to get a fillet. So I'm going to click this line. You can kind of see it automatically selects the rest of it, which is very nice of it. I'm just going to fully select everything now. Not the whole face. Oh, and one thing to show, if you select the wrong thing, you can kind of see everything's listed here. I didn't want to select the face, so I can just click on it and hit delete, and it's gone. So you don't have to worry about like closing out, reselecting everything. You can just click on the thing you don't want and delete it. So do that edge. Yeah, we'll just stick to that edge. And it's going to ask you a couple things. Do you want it symmetric or not? With fillets, you want to just leave it as symmetric. If you want to play around with asymmetric and see what it does, go for it. It's going to almost make it like an oval. What fillet does is it curves your edge. Chamfer will just kind of make it diagonal. It'll like do a cutoff corner kind of thing. So if you do asymmetric, it'll almost make it like an oval curve, whereas this is a circular curve. Generally, the only thing I ever mess with a fillet is the radius. So I'll leave it as 0.1. We'll see how that comes out. And another thing is you'll see these things, preview options. I have it as no preview. I don't like doing that though. What's nice is to do click full or partial preview. And that'll kind of show you what your shape's going to look like once you do it. And you can kind of see it's going to round off all our corners. And if I wanted to up this maybe a bit more, maybe I do 0.2. That's going to round it even more, just because you're increasing the radius. I kind of like how 0.2 looks, so I'm going to leave it there. But you guys can set it to whatever you want. One thing I'd like to show you, though, is if I try to do like 0.6, that preview disappears, and that's because it's way too big. This is only 0.5 thick, so I can't do a 0.6 radius fillet. But let me do a 0.5, but that brings me right up to the edge. See that? So if I try to do 0.51, breaks. So that's something you want to kind of take into account. If you're trying to do a fillet and your preview disappears, or it's, getting angry at you, that probably means you made it too big. Or you just have preview off. So make sure preview's on. And then if it's still not doing anything, you probably made it too big. But I'm going to set this to 0.25. I would set it anywhere between 0.1 and 0.25 should be okay. All right, click OK. And now you can see that this edge is nice and rounded. And just to do, yeah, we'll leave that. So I kind of want to show you what happens when we fillet a face. So if I fillet a face, you can see what it basically does. Kind of happened too quick. We'll do a partial preview. So essentially what it does is it takes, that's really what I want either. So it takes every single edge on that face. So see how this face has the edge here and the edge here? It just rounds both of them. And you can kind of see how that looks. All right, it just rounds both edges. And because I set it to 0.25, they meet up here. But if I do 0.2, you can kind of see there's a bit of a flat spot between the fillets. But yeah, we'll leave it as 0.2. That looks kind of cool. I like that flat spot. That's just because we have a 0.5-inch thick piece. So if we have two 0.25 radius fillets, that's going to make basically a 0.5 diameter semicircle, which will just round the whole thing. Yeah. Now we have that. And that actually looks quite a bit like a chain link with our fillets. We still have one more edge, though, you can kind of see here. So I'm going to wait for everyone to catch up, though, to make sure everyone's doing okay. Is anyone stuck? All right, I'm just going to do one last thing. If anyone has any questions, I can answer them. And one thing to note, in SolidWorks, you can select your lines first. So I'm going to select the edge first. Then I'm going to do the drop. I'm going to do a chamfer this time. I like how fillet looks, but just to show you guys how chamfer works. Oh, it's not going to let me do it, I don't think. Yeah, one thing to note, I don't think it lets you. Oh, There we go. Okay. The way chamfers work, like I said, instead of rounding it, see how that's just a straight cut line? Basically just cuts off the corner, essentially. But yeah, what you can do is if you want, you can select the lines you want first and then hit the feature, or you can do the feature and then select the lines. Really depends on what you want to do, but you can do it either way. And even though I'm in here, I can still add another line if I wanted to. But that's a smooth edge, so I don't have any more lines I can select, but you can still edit it if you want to. So I can get rid of that line, add it back in. Face just the line. Just the line. There we go. Sometimes you got to zoom in, but I'm going to do this as a 0.1 chamfer. That looks kind of cool too. You got like an angled chain link that way. But yeah, you can kind of see this is like a straight cut, whereas the fillet is more of a rounded. And in different cases, you might want different things. And I'll be honest, like if I wanted to make a chain link, I probably would do this where I made a straight slot and then I just filleted everything to round it out. Is that the best way to make one? Arguably not. We'll kind of go into some other ways. Actually, what we can do is, I forget if it's next class or the one after, but we're going to go over into revolve extrudes, and then I can show you guys a different way of doing a chain link, which would be kind of cool. But for now, I think that's everything I wanted to cover in this specific lesson. I don't really have a challenge for this one. I don't know. Maybe whoever, just try making like a perfect chain link, I guess. Like, see how this one has the flats and I have this fillet, or I have this chamfer instead of a fillet. If anyone wants to try to basically go back. Oh, yes, Aaron? You can just unmute and just say it. I don't care. Keep going.
Okay. I filleted the inside of it.
Yep.
Like the inside geometry of this chain.
Yeah.
I didn't chamfer it.
That's okay. I just wanted to show you guys how to chamfer.
Okay.
Like I'm not collecting these. These are yours. Yeah, chamfer and fillet work very much the same way. It's kind of the same process. They just look different and they have a different effect. And I will say there's a lot of options in both. That I'll like in SolidWorks, there's so many options. I'm not gonna be able to cover everything. I'm not gonna be able to cover every feature. There's just so much stuff. So a lot of it is going to be experimentation. Like you can see here that, you know, there's a lot of stuff. Like I can change the angle of the chamfer if I wanted to, or I can even just change the type, you know, where I can make it a symmetric or an asymmetric. Like there's so many options. And I really, really encourage you guys to just, if you ever have like free time, honestly, what you can just do is, I think once we do 1 or 2 more classes, you'll probably be able to do at least a basic model of just about anything. Like it'll be different amounts of difficulty, but if you just have like a water bottle on your desk, you could probably make an okay CAD model of it. So once you get to that point, I might even just make it a challenge to try to CAD something on your desk. You actually might, you probably CAD a bunch of stuff on your desk at this point. What have I taught? All that? I don't know. With this week's challenge, you want to try making a CAD model of your phone? That could be a pretty good one. I think I'm actually going to do that. If anyone wants to kind of work on a challenge this week, obviously you don't need to. This isn't a school class. But if anyone wants to try practicing, a really good practice would be trying to just CAD your phone. Just get like a ruler, get some basic dimensions. That could be a pretty fun exercise. But yeah, if I honestly just try to make something. Just find something on your desk where you kind of look at and you're like, yeah, I think I can make that, and just try to make it in SolidWorks because that's a really good way to practice. I know one thing I've done to practice, I try to make coffee mugs. Those are really tricky. But we'll kind of cover, you might be able to do it now, but we'll kind of cover more stuff later on that might help with that. But I don't know, does anyone have any questions? Just kind of talk about what we went over. In sketches, we kind of talked a little bit about circles. Oh, I should mention perimeter circles. You just click 3 points. You don't select a center point. Kind of works like your 3-point arcs. But we kind of already touched on circles before, but the main thing we talked about the different arcs. We kind of covered relations. And I showed you exactly what not to do, which was make a mess of relations. And we also covered chamfers and fillets. And we also did a little bit of talking about like design methodology. That's why I think making up something on your desk is a great idea, because these follow-alongs are cool. They teach you the skills, but it can be really challenging to just pick something off your desk and try to CAD it. So if anyone has time and they're bored, highly recommend it as a practice. But I think that's everything I have if no one has any questions. Should I save this?
I won't be here next week because I'll be out of state.
Oh, that's totally fine. Yeah. Everything's going to be recorded. So if you want, you just always watch the video to catch up. I would recommend making sure you watch the video before the class after that, because everything does kind of build. And I will admit, I go into each lesson assuming that everyone learned what was at the last one. So, yeah, as long as you're watching the video, it's totally fine. My feelings aren't hurt. Does anyone have any? I'm gonna stop share.